entertaining talking sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. I want to say sorry for the late upload about the post-game video and kind of just the season recap. I was live streaming. I stayed on late, and I kind of wanted to rest up before I live streamed the last game, being that the New York Giants are going to be playing for the playoffs, and I figured I'll wait. I'll see how it all plays out, and that way we find out whether or not the New York Giants will be playing in the playoffs. Well, unfortunately, things did not work out as a lot of New York Giants fans, I'm assuming, expected, as the Washington football team will be headed to the playoffs as they took down the Philadelphia Eagles 20-14. And a lot of Giants fans, and I understand it, are upset that the Eagles did not play their starters. They're upset that Doug Peterson didn't kick the field goal late in that game, and they're upset that they pulled their quarterback going into the fourth quarter. But at the end of the day, the New York Giants put themselves in that situation. We had opportunities to win games throughout the year, some of it in our control, some of it not, right? You could talk about them as the called back penalties against Dallas that we could definitely debate. But regardless, the Giants had opportunities where we wouldn't have to rely on anybody and we could control our own destiny. And we lost 3 straight at the end of the year against superior opponents, but we still lost 3 straight. And, I mean, we won 6 games. I mean, you know, we're really going to cry that we didn't really have that opportunity. So, it is what it is. I like that the New York Giants finished on a strong note. I'll get into the game. I'll get into the season recap. But for the first time since 2016, the New York Giants beat the Dallas Cowboys. And for the first time since, I think it was 2016 as well, we beat the Philadelphia Eagles. We hadn't beaten either one of those teams in a very long time, and you can hang your hat on that the New York Giants definitely improved from within the division this year and showed a lot of growth throughout the entirety of this year. We finished 5-3 down the stretch over our last 8 games. I have frequently compared our situation to the Miami Dolphins of last year. And, of course, the Dolphins had more money and cap space to play with last year going into this season, and they saw a huge jump. I think they finished 10-6 this year, even though they narrowly missed the playoffs. But the year before, you know, they finished 5-11, and they won, I think it was 5 out of their last 8 games, much like the Giants this year after they got off to a very slow start. So I think they're in very comparable situations. I think the Giants have more talent on this team than that team had last year, but Miami had, you know, more draft capital, more free agency, so maybe it balances out. And we'll have to wait and see what the New York Giants will do this offseason. And at this point, we know all the needs, right? We know we need a wide receiver. We know we need weapons. We know we need an edge. We know we need a corner. We know we need a coverage linebacker. And you know that I'm going to talk about all of it for months, whether it be mock drafts, whether it be free agency videos, cap space videos, rumor videos. You know, you come here, we're going to talk about it. I'll continue to do the live streams, and it's going to be a very important offseason for the New York Giants. The first answer we're going to have to get, and you know, I've seen rumors already on Twitter, and we're going to have to wait and see what the Giants decide to do with the coaching staff and what they decide to do with upper management, namely Dave Gettleman. Do they decide to go in a completely different direction, or do they decide to stay either in-house or bring Dave back? And we'll get those answers to those questions shortly, maybe as soon as tomorrow. Rumors came out that Dave will be back, but that's not from a credible source. But he also left open the possibility that it may be in a reduced role. And we'll see what the New York Giants decide to do going forward. I've been on record of saying that I think they'll stay in-house or stay with Dave as being the GM. I think they'll look at it like this season there was progress. They had a strong offseason. There's really no denying it. The New York Giants had a strong offseason. And, you know, it's going to come down to Joe Judge and what Joe Judge feels about the GM, what he feels about the quarterback. And you've heard him come out and back up Daniel Jones several times. Now that could be coach talk, and it could be the same way with Dave Gettleman. And we're going to get those answers very shortly. As far as the draft pick that the New York Giants now receive, had we lost, I think we'd be picking 7. Instead, we're picking 11. And I'm going to do a ton of mock drafts. But if you look at the teams around us, it's still entirely possible that the New York Giants could get one of the top 2 wide receivers. I'm not telling you that we're definitely going to. I'm not even telling you that I expect it. But some of the teams that are ahead of us, like the Broncos, for example, they're not taking a receiver. They have a really good receiving core with Cortland Sutton. They drafted Judy last year. So a lot of people were upset that they jumped us. They're not taking a wide receiver. Dallas is not taking a wide receiver. The teams at the top are not taking wide receivers more than likely. Will 2 of them go in that 6 to 8 range? Maybe. And we'll have to wait and see. It could be Pitts. Who knows? And if that is the case, maybe somebody else falls to us, like a Parsons or a Roussel, whatever. And, we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But we got plenty of time to talk about the draft, and we have plenty of time to talk about free agency. As far as free agency goes, I think the Giants will look at the draft board. They'll look how they value these prospects, and they'll determine what they think is more likely to drop to them. If they feel like there's a supreme edge rusher that maybe they're at 11, maybe they attack wide receiver in free agency. If they feel like one of the elite wide receiver prospects will get to them, well, maybe they go more defensive free agency. And I think that's the way they're going to evaluate it. And that'll be very interesting to try to guess and estimate as to what I think Dave Gettleman and the New York Giants will do. It's one of my favorite things to do about the offseason because you get to become creative. And last season, I was pretty accurate. I thought the New York Giants would attack the offensive line heavily in the draft. I thought that they would focus on short-term contracts, which is exactly what they did in free agency. And I think they'll probably do that this year, but I'll get more into detail throughout the offseason. As far as this game goes today, I talk about it throughout the week. I thought I thought it was important that the New York Giants have a game like this, a playoff-like atmosphere. And that's what you got against the Dallas Cowboys. And games like that, I think, are important for the growth of Daniel Jones. And I don't have the stats in front of me. It's way too late for me to go over the stats. But I could tell you what I thought about Daniel Jones in this game, and then we'll get to the other players on the team. Daniel Jones did his job today. The stat sheet may not indicate it if you look at it. I think he threw 2 touchdowns, maybe threw 1. But regardless, he made a number of really good throws in this game, mainly that one drive where he had 2 long passes down the seam, the touchdown to Dante Pettis, who I'm going to get to more in the video. But you saw Daniel Jones grow in a big spot. And you saw Daniel Jones get progressively better over the second half of the year. Yeah, he turned the ball over twice today, but he didn't really deserve either one. Wayne Gallman fumbled the handoff. The other ball went right off of Evan Ingram's hands, which we've become all too familiar with. And we'll see what the Giants decide to do at that tight end spot, whether it's in the draft or free agency. But Jones, if you don't just look at the stat sheet, played really well in this game and was one of the reasons why the New York Giants won this football game. He got the job done. And the detractors will say it was against a bad defense. Regardless, it was a clutch situation. It was a big game, and Daniel Jones made the plays to win. And he made a number of really good throws. And I can't wait to look over the film and to analyze how he did throughout this game. But overall, I was really happy with Daniel Jones. Joe Judge, same thing. I mean, you knew the Giants had to come out with a run-first approach against this team, and they ran the ball fairly effectively. And where they won this game was in the trenches, and that's where I needed to see growth this year. The offensive line got a really good push in the run game, especially early on in the game. The pass protection was excellent. The growth of Andrew Thomas throughout the entirety of this year has been phenomenal. The last 8 games, outside of one game against Arizona where it was really bad, he was great. You didn't call his name against Myles Garrett. You didn't call his name today. He was really good. He's definitely proven to be worthy of one of the best tackles in last year's draft class. And I'm sure it's going to be inevitable over the course of his career, being that it was such a strong tackle draft class, and being that the Giants took him 4th overall, he will be compared to his counterparts throughout the rest of his career. But I've always said it from the start, I don't really care. Like, if Mekhi Becton turns out better, but Andrew Thomas is great, I'm happy. And I think Andrew Thomas showed you enough over the last half of this season that he's trending towards being a very good to great tackle in the NFL. And if we get that, if we get a guy that we could stick in at the left side for the next 10 to 15 years, that's great. And today he played phenomenal. Nick Gates, loved the fight in Nick Gates. And I think that's one of the most underrated moves that Dave Gettleman and the New York Giants made this offseason when they extended him before the year started. Now you got Nick Gates under team control for the next 2 years on a $3 million a year salary. Had you waited till the end of the year, it would have cost you a lot more money. He played really well for the Giants this year and was one of the unsung heroes for this football team. I love to see the fight every single game, got in the face of the Dallas Cowboys, really mixed it up a bit. I think he's becoming one of the leaders of this New York Giants offensive line. I think he's one of the bright spots for this team going forward. So I wanted to point him out, and the offensive line as a whole, I thought played well in this game. One thing I noticed from Garrett in this game, and that's going to be another major question mark, whether the New York Giants move on from Garrett or not, I noticed that he really utilized the tight ends a lot in this game, especially early on. You saw him throw it to Caden Smith a few times, Toyolo, Ingram. Of course, Ingram had a couple of crucial drops, but they did utilize him a lot. Sterling Shepard was great. You could tell that Sterling Shepard really wanted to fight. He gave it everything he had. He ran great routes. He created separation, and he had a really good game in this contest. And Dante Pettis, the only question I have about him, like I posted on Twitter, is where's this guy been? I know he had COVID, so I get it, but he was great, and maybe the New York Giants found a diamond in the rough. Not that I'm going to tell you he's going to be a number 1 wide receiver, but he could very well be a contributor for this football team next year. That could be a very underrated signing by Gettleman and Joe Judge in season. He had a really good game today for the Giants. Of course, made the play of the game that some people could definitely argue should have been overturned, but regardless, he also caught the touchdown. Pettis had a great game for the Giants today. So I wanted to point him out as well. The defensive line got back to what they were great at before this 3-game stretch. They dominated up the middle. Leonard Williams, I think, finished the year now with 11.5 sacks, and that's going to be another major question mark going into the offseason. Will the New York Giants extend Leonard Williams? Well, Leonard Williams was probably the primary reason the Giants won this game today, at least defensively. He was fantastic. Got constant pressure. Dexter Lawrence got pressure. Dalvin Tomlinson, I think, had a sack. The defensive line as a whole, I think they made a case to bring them back because they've definitely shown that is a strength of this defense. Julian Love definitely deserves to be pointed out as well. Had really good coverage. I think he dropped like 2 picks, but he had really good coverage throughout the game, at least from what I saw. And I thought the Giants as a whole did a great job manning up these wide receivers on the Dallas Cowboys. You're talking about arguably the best wide receiving core in football, if not maybe second to the Bucs, but a great wide receiver core, with Gallup and CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, and they really held them in check. Where we got killed was the tight end, but overall, I thought the Giants came out with a great defensive game plan, and it was a major reason why we won this game. And the other rookie that it was really nice to see him finish the year on a high point was Xavier McKinney. McKinney balled out. He made 2 really big plays in this game, and of course closed it out with the interception before we nearly lost all our hair with the Wayne Gallman fumble that he was able to recover. But McKinney came up with a huge interception late in the game, which was, I think, the 3rd time this year where the defense kind of closed out a game. They closed out a game, I think, against Washington the first time with the scoop and score, Seattle, and now this contest. And we've relied on the defense a lot. And next year, I think the mission statement has to be to not rely on them as much, to get that offense to improve. And I think there's reasons for hope. The main one being the progression of Daniel Jones over these last 8 games, but you're getting Barkley back. You have to figure if Gettleman's back, and even if he's not, that the Giants are going to play, they're going to focus heavily on getting Daniel Jones some help on the offense. And a lot of people worry, they'll say Gettleman's all about the offensive line, the defensive line. Gettleman's all about saving his job and protecting his legacy. And his legacy right now is Daniel Jones. And I think anybody could see that Daniel Jones needs help. He needs receivers. So I do expect if Gettleman is back, or if they bring anybody in, that they will focus heavily on the wide receiver. That's got to be one of the things that the New York Giants hit home with this offseason. I expect them to do so. But overall, I'm very happy with the effort that the New York Giants put out today. I'm really happy with the growth this season, even though it sucks that we missed the playoffs. But we won 6 games. The year before we won 4. And with all the challenges we had going into the season with the new coach, the pandemic, the new schemes, I don't need to go over it. We've talked about it a million times. For them to have 2 more wins than the previous year, and you factor in the schedule that we played, 8 out of the 10 teams that were not in the division, I believe, at least going into today, were making the playoffs. I think it's now 7 because Arizona missed, but Arizona was still a good football team. The year before, only 4 teams made the playoffs. So the Giants played a much more challenging schedule. They still had 2 more wins, and they easily could have swept the division. They should have beat the Eagles the first time. They blew an 11-point lead with like 4 minutes to go. And like I said, I think earlier in the video, the referees called back 2 touchdowns against the Dallas Cowboys. So they easily could have swept the division this year. They easily could have beaten the Bucs. There was a number of games in which they could have won. And I compare this season a lot to 2018. The difference is this is a team rebuilding. That was a team trying to win in the moment, and they didn't have a lot of hope for the future. This is a team with a lot of young talent. They have more cap flexibility. They've got a young quarterback that you hope is growing, and there's more room for growth from this team than the 2018 team. But if you remember back to 18, and I think a lot of it makes sense, Shermer's first year as the head coach, the Giants went 1-7 the first 8 games. They went 4-4 the last 8. And in those last 8, they could have won 7. I mean, you had, I think, the game against the Panthers where they made a 63-yarder, the Colt game where they lost by a point, the Cowboy game, the Eagle game. So they easily could have won 7 and 8. And that team showed a lot of hope going into the 2019 season. What we need this team to do, though, is not fall flat on their face. We need these young players with Joe Judge to progress and move forward and continue to grow. And Joe Judge made this season about that. That was his mission statement when he took this job. It was about progression. It was about growth. It was about improvement week to week. It was never about the playoffs. Obviously, you want to make the playoffs. That's always a goal of any football team. But he saw where this team was. He saw that he was trying to instill his culture. And to me, the most... The thing I am most excited about and the thing that gives me the most confidence for this team moving forward is I do think we have a very good coach. I do think we have a very good young coach that is instilling a culture, that is building a winning football team. And we'll have to wait and see how he progresses in year 2. Joe Judge has a lot of big decisions to make. We'll see what the Giants do over these next couple of days. But I want to get a quick video up for you guys talking about the season as a whole. overall, I'm happy. I like where the Giants are at. Obviously, I would have liked a better result at the end of the season, but I picked 6 wins at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year, rather. And I thought I was being a little bit optimistic when I looked at the schedule. I had them in my head between 4 and 6. I leaned more on my optimistic approach. I thought 5 or 6 was probably most realistic. And in the end, they got 6 wins. They did exactly what I expected. I thought they'd be a much better team over the second half. They were 1-7 in the first 8. They were 5-3 in the second 8. And they beat every team in our division for the first time since 2016. So there's reasons for hope. But we still have a long ways to go. And we'll see what the New York Giants do this offseason. We'll see some of the decisions that they make. But as always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.